time for a show called Philanthropy with our Brent and Brian.
Philanthropy.
All right. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the show that we're not calling Philanthropy. I'm Brent. This is my co-host, Brian.
And with them, as always, it's me, Buzz.
Are you Buzz on this show too?
I don't even get to say my own name. You're a control freak. Damn. All right.
All right.
And what we have is a modified VCR with 4,000 movies on random.
You really sold that just the right way too. So hopefully you're familiar with our sister programs, of course, Bits and Brews with Brent and Brian, and One-on-One with Glenn and Brent. They're very popular shows available on our YouTube channel, Two Men, One Couch. Today's inaugural episode of what I'm calling Movie Fight, and what other people are calling Dumb Things, is the AV Club's list of the top 25 horror movies of the last 15 years. Glenn and I were discussing it earlier today, and we decided that our opinions matter and that people need to hear what we have to say about this list.
Wouldn't it be great for you to hear them?
You're going to hear them right now. All right, so I've pulled up the list here, and we're just going to run quickly, starting at 25, running to 1. We can talk about each film, our personal thoughts on it, whether it belongs on the list or not. Starting number 25, Martyrs, a movie that I know Glenn has opinions about.
I might put that near the very top of this list because it had a big effect on me, which is usually what makes me put things on top of lists. Very disturbing, very frightening, perhaps. I'm not sure if you would call it a traditional Halloween-ish type movie, but thumbs up for me.
I have not seen this movie, and that's a wonderful place for me to start.
There you go. All right. Moving along to number 24. We have a film called Ginger Snaps. I think Glenn and I both agree on this one. This movie was better than you would expect, but deserving of a spot on the top 25 films, horror films of the last 15 years, I'm not sure. I enjoyed it, but I couldn't say I loved it.
It looks like it's targeting a certain audience that isn't me, but I ended up liking the people in it. So,
I'm off to a bad start because I haven't seen this movie either.
God. All right, well, perhaps number 23, The Strangers. This is a movie I loved, and what I did love about it, the use of sound design to evoke horror, which makes me think of one of my all-time favorite films, The Haunting, the original Haunting, of course, which, again, uses very little other than sound to make that sense of dread come to life. I feel like The Strangers was a very good example of that sort of filmmaking.
I really liked that movie a lot, honestly. I just thought that when you're talking about the sound, I thought it was kind of the lack of sound that made that movie so terrifying. Yeah, you know, there was
not sound design.
Yeah. You and your fancy terms, film snobs. I think that it was, or just a slow build. The whole dread of the movie is what really made it cool. And then, of course, I don't know if we're doing spoilers, but I was just very happy to see them, an unhappy ending.
That's a spoiler. That's
the mysterious element where you're not sure what these strangers are all about, and you do feel like you're trapped out in the middle of nowhere because it's set in the middle of nowhere and you have no way to communicate with anyone.
There you go. All right, number 22 on the list, The Others, a beautifully shot and well-acted period horror drama. I loved that movie at the time. It had a twist that I didn't see coming, which may seem obvious now, but the design, it's a lovely, quiet horror movie.
I thought it was a very well-made movie and well-acted, like you said, and I thought that the twist ending was M. Night Shyamalan in its awfulness, and it made me never want to watch that movie again. So I would definitely not put it on this list.
Fair enough.
I would say that I only saw it once back in the day, and I liked the way it looked, and that held my attention, but it didn't have much of an effect, I would have to say. I'm sorry, Brent.
Well, we have our first fight. It's me versus the two of you, and I don't know how we settle it.
But I don't know. I don't know if I like haunted house movies anyway. I can't really think of one that I really like.
The Old Dark House?
I do like that, but, it's different. Anything prior to 1960 is different for me.
All right, Glenn. Well, you're wrong. Moving along, number 21, the first instance where I think we're all three going to break with the people of the AV Club.
Yeah.
28 weeks later, a sequel that I found almost unwatchable.
It was kind of like they made 28 Days Later and they said, oh, wow, this is great, and this made money, so let's make a bloated, terrible sequel with a budget 20 times the size of the original, and it's not scary at all.
It does have a neat gag with the helicopter running through, chopping people up. I did enjoy that gag.
There were decent kills, it just sucked overall.
I haven't seen this movie or its prequel because I was turned off by the fact that zombies were running.
Do we take issue with the AV Club's usage of the term zombie to refer to the infected people of the rage virus in the 28 days and weeks later films?
I never cared.
There are pedants who, of course, would throw a hissy. Do we care?
I never cared. They're all zombies, whether they're fast or slow or dead or infected or whatever. The idea is this pretty much the same, if you ask me.
Don't get me wrong, I may end up liking this movie if I see it, but I don't have a problem with them calling it zombie, even though really it's not a zombie.
Well, you're wrong. All right, moving along to number 20, May. This is a movie I liked. Again, didn't love it, but I did think it was a nice inversion of the slasher film with a strong performance by Angela Bettis in the title role. I liked it.
Once again, I have failed the viewing audience. This is number 3 of the movies that I have not seen. I promise it's not half the list or anything.
Mm-hmm.
In the spirit of the political season and there being debates going on between candidates, I'd like to go back to a previous thing. I don't like the way you just say that my opinions are wrong. I mean, they're opinions, they're not,
Well, it's called Movie Fight. I hope it says that.
I believe it says
in post-production.
Film-anthropy in a big circle right around Brian's head.
But film-anthropy, it's too agreeable.
I think that people out there understand that everyone sees things in their own special way, and that makes this show unique because we have 3 unique people saying things.
Well, you're wrong. Moving on to number 19.
You're still wrong.
The film Wolf Creek.
Wolf Creek was awesome. I mean, it's basically the same movie that's been made 1,000 times with the killer in some remote location and people with their cars breaking down being off one at a time. But I don't remember the name of the actor, but the guy who played the Australian psychopath, who just was so gleeful, cutting these people in half and just, I don't know. He made the movie more fun than it would have been otherwise, I think. And the sequel was even better, and that should be on this list.
Falls into that category of torture movie. If you can get into that, I thought it was well done.
I actually have not seen this one. It's my time to admit defeat.
Well, you're dumb for not seeing it.
I know.
Moving on to the next one.
You're wrong.
Number 18. I know. Number 18, Kill List. I did see this one. I enjoyed this film and its unexpected turn into Wicker Man territory.
I know.
What seems like a crime film turns into a horror film in ways you might not expect.
In this movie, there was a list, and people on it were killed. It was gruesome.
You didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
Glenn?
I never saw an actual list, so I'm going to have to disagree on that part. I did see it. It didn't have much of an effect, even though I love The Wicker Man, which is sort of that element's in there.
All right. Number 17, a movie I did love, The Host. Not the one from the Twilight lady, but The Host, which is a just hilarious and fun twist on the monster movie trope. Nothing better than watching this totally fucked up and bizarre fish monster running around gobbling people in broad daylight. A great movie. Really enjoyed it.
It was South Korean Godzilla. I mean, what's not to like? I liked it.
I thought it was fun and weird and just what you would want out of a movie like this. I believe that director has directed a lot of various types of movies. Isn't he the one that directed The Good, the Bad, and the Weird? Kind of a...
You're wrong.
I could be wrong about that. But folks, we're going to keep trying.
All right. Number 16, a movie, again, I have to admit I've not seen, but I think Glenn can weigh in. Trouble Every Day.
French movie. Vincent Gallo is in it for some reason. It was pretty good, but I really don't...
Would it make 16 on your list of...
I don't think so,
Right.
because it didn't leave much of an effect. The reason why I would pick Martyrs, because it did have an effect. Trouble Every Day, I can't really talk about the plot too much.
All right. Number 15, The Devil's Backbone. The first appearance of Guillermo del Toro on the list. That's another beautifully made traditional ghost story. Very good movie. All right, moving over to Glenn.
I've seen either Devil's Backbone or The Orphanage,
You can't
but I can't remember which one. But I know that they're both heartwarming.
I've seen both of them, and we'll get to The Orphanage here momentarily. Number 14, The Cabin in the Woods. I'm almost annoyed by how popular this movie is now, but I just can't hold it against it. I really loved that movie. I enjoyed seeing it opening weekend, so I can't be too hard on people loving it that much. It's a really clever and fun movie.
The mystery was cool, and it certainly didn't go where I thought it was going to go, and like this whole underground Hades or whatever. So I thought it was pretty awesome. I would put it on the list.
Absolutely.
This is Joss Whedon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was. I was ready to not like it because he was the director, but I ended up getting a kick out of it.
Yeah, what I enjoyed the most was the depth of the world building. I could spend forever just going through each of those cubes and seeing all the different monsters that they have in that movie. They tackled everything. It's just such a deep movie that definitely warrants multiple viewings. I really enjoyed that film a lot. Number 13, again, a movie I haven't seen. I'm wondering if we should even be doing this show now. Pulse.
Have you seen it?
I've seen Pulse. I believe I told you earlier that I saw it years after it came out, and I think some of the technology that they presented were dated for me, so I didn't get as much out of it that I think I might have back in 2001. So it didn't have much of an effect, though it had some interesting images. So I would check it out.
All right, moving on to number 12, a movie that I feel definitely belongs on the list, if not in the top 10, The Orphanage. Beautifully made, heartbreaking, sad, scary.
And it was creepy as hell. I do remember, and I think just the whole atmosphere and so much shot in the dark. I mean, it was a really good movie. It definitely belongs on the list.
Don't remember if I've seen it.
All right. Number 11, The Ring, a terrific remake of a better movie.
Ringu?
Mm-hmm.
I think Ringu would definitely belong on the list. And honestly,
in place of the remake, for sure.
I loved the remake. I would hold it up there just in the same caliber as the original. Now, the sequels, both the American and the Japanese, just get progressively worse.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
So it's just the first of each should definitely be on that list.
But again, if you're going to bother putting the story on the list, I would go with the original.
Yeah, I would too, probably.
Sorry, AV Club.
The remake is well made. I like Naomi Watts a lot. But it really doesn't hold a candle to the original for me. The original really was chilling, and you're not sure what you were seeing, and it was the inspiration for a lot of those movies, copycat movies over the years.
Yeah.
So replace the American with the other one, and I'm great.
And there you go. Number 10, a movie I've also not seen, but Glenn has, Inside.
Yes. It sort of had that Martyrs feel to it. Mm-hmm. It's very a lot of things going on. I'm not going to go over the plot right now, but it's worthy choice.
Would it be in the top 10?
For me, it would.
For me, of the movies that are on that list, that movie would be the number one spot. Because that is one of the most terrifying and gruesome movies that I have ever seen. And I mean, there's so much violence in it, but all of it pretty much is knife inflicted and like hammers and just horrible sound effects and slicing flesh and just blood and cutting people open. And but it's really well done. It's not like, a whole bunch of shit done for no reason. So that is definitely the best movie on that list for me.
I would prefer that to something like Hostel, even though they're both very horrific. Because
Hostel, not making the list.
But Inside feels real, and Hostel just feels stupid.
All right.
Well, I kind of like Hostel.
I like the first Hostel quite a bit, actually.
We're both wrong.
All right.
But we went over this in part 1.
All right, number 9, Let the Right One In. I enjoyed this film, and I enjoyed the remake as well. I did enjoy the original better, though. It had a sweetness that is unexpected, that really kind of made the film seem unique.
I thought it was creepy, and it was interesting to watch, but it was so slow that it bored the crap out of me. There were a couple of really interesting scenes, but then you'd have a really interesting moment, and then 30 minutes of just wandering around, and then another interesting moment, then 15 more minutes of nothing. So I didn't really care for it that much.
This is the American version that's on here?
No, Let the Right One In is the original.
Okay, well, I prefer it.
The remake was Let Me In, I believe.
I've never seen the remake, only the original. I like this movie. I like the feeling, the slow moving pace sort of fit the story. You really cared for those kids. I wanted good things for them.
Yeah, I enjoyed
The remake was like shot per shot, too, if I recall.
It was
Almost.
similar. It was very close. Number 8, and the last of the films I have not seen, Cure. Same director as Pulse, I believe, yes?
I have not seen that either.
Glenn, anything?
My memory tells me I've seen it. My other memory says I have not.
All right, that's a strikeout from the team here. Sorry, guys. Cannot speak to whether or not it belongs in that top 10. But we're going to move along now to a movie called The Descent, which I did enjoy a lot. But as the AV Club notes here, the monsters are almost extraneous. The film stands as it is, the claustrophobic setting, the character drama, the violence inherent to the story itself. You could do without the albino cave monster people and have just as good of a film. But I did enjoy the movie quite a bit, and I would say a worthy addition to the top 10.
I would say that is probably the best movie of that kind that I can think of, about people being trapped in some place and being hunted by a monster. Because of the darkness and the claustrophobic feel, like you said, the monsters are well done. The rivalries between the characters don't feel forced or stupid like they do in most of those types of movies. So when they actually do start turning on each other, it totally seems real to me.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. I like the beginning of the movie more than toward the end, which the end was sort of the point of the movie, but I almost didn't need it.
All right, number 6, a movie that I actually love a great deal, Drag Me to Hell, the return, Sam Raimi, his return to horror. Not really loved a lot at the time it came out, I feel, but I think people are kind of catching it now. I really enjoyed that movie a lot.
I think because I compared it to Evil Dead when I watched it, that was why I hated it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because Evil Dead and all of them were just such great movies. And then I watched this, and all I could think of was, I really wish Bruce Campbell was in this. Because it just felt like an Evil Dead movie where they cast someone else.
Can't say I agree with that, Brian. Glenn?
I really liked it a lot. I thought it was funny, but also kind of scary. Like, what's this whole curse about? You were rooting for the main character, and it's a worthy entry on the list.
I'd say so, I'm happy it's getting a reappraisal as time goes on. Number 5, a movie which changed horror films forever, perhaps 28 Days Later. You owe a lot, as our producer earlier was pointing out, The Walking Dead, the zombie revival. There are a lot of points in culture you can point to, but I think 28 Days Later was one of the biggest for sure.
I think that was probably the most, maybe still the most realistic zombie movie that's ever been made, just because of the way that it was shot on that kind of grainy, handheld-looking camera, like you're in the middle of something that's really happening. And it scared the hell out of several people that I know. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
I probably should see it someday, but I have not. One thing I will say,
Jesus
A
Christ.
rare on-air appearance. The anger from producer Danny Cash so palpable.
You've seen everything else on the list.
well,
It's a classic, Glenn.
I'm sorry, but I will say this.
Terrible.
I think a lot of the zombie movies of the last 15 years owe a lot to Resident Evil.
Well, I did.
And I'll leave it at that.
All right.
I love
That
Resident Evil.
I really like the first Resident Evil myself. Also, the rest of them are fucking terrible, but I do love that first one. All right, number 4. But I would not put it in this list.
No.
Resident Evil would still not make the top 25. House of the Devil. That is a movie I actually loved. Just the entire vibe, the feel, the production was just took me back to my youth. I really love that movie.
I enjoyed that movie more as a gimmick than I actually enjoyed the movie itself. Because while I was watching it and just thinking, wow, this was only made a couple of years ago, but it looks and feels exactly like it was made in the 70s. And it was just too boring. It made me think and reminisce about much better movies, which isn't something that I should be doing while I'm watching something. So I wouldn't really put it on that list myself, but I can't deny that it was a well-made movie and certainly accomplished what it was trying to do.
Well, it's a top 10 entry for me, for sure.
I'm sometimes turned off by movies that try to go retro, like recreating some other time period, just because it seems like a gimmick. But I really like this movie. Was Greta Gerwig in this? Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was really good. Yeah. So yes, put it on this list.
All right. So we're in the top 3 now, and I'm going to go ahead and tackle 3 and 2 at the same time here because I have the same issue with the youthful exuberance of the AV Club. Number 3, they have The Babadook, and number 2, It Follows. Those are 2 great movies. I love both of those movies, but I feel they're too new to be canonizing at this point. To be thrusting them into the 2nd and 3rd spots seems a bit premature at this time.
I really enjoyed The Babadook quite a bit. I liked the whole mystery about, whether everything was really happening or wasn't it. You're wondering that through the whole movie. And It Follows just basically seemed to me like the best John Carpenter movie that he never made. Because that director, I think it went beyond homage and turned into aping John Carpenter, basically. Because all I could think about was John Carpenter while I was watching this movie. But it was still really good. But like you said, they're both relatively new movies. I've only seen each one once. So I guess I'd have to watch them more before I would decide whether they were really worthy of being on there.
I think we need a little more age on them before we throw some up there. Glenn?
Both those movies and The House of the Devil are the modern movies that do the slow build rather than the throw the book at you violence and horror. I like both of these. Worthy entries, but I would not, if I were creating the list, I wouldn't immediately think they would be top 5. But I haven't made a list.
All right, and finishing up the list, the number 1 choice of the AV Club, a movie that I was surprised to see because in my mind it seems like a 90s movie for some reason. Audition by the great director Takeshi Miike. Mike.
Who knows how you say it?
Miike.
Miike. That movie is grueling, and it's a great film. I do enjoy it, but again, for some reason I have a mental block. I wouldn't have even thought that was made in the last 15 years. But I guess it probably was, though.
2001?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I do remember that it took a very, very long time to get started. And I remember being on the verge of really not wanting to watch it anymore when all of a sudden it just became so gruesome and terrifying that I just kept watching it. So it seemed to me like it was one half of a really good movie. I don't hate it, but I probably wouldn't really want to sit down and watch it again because it was one of those, I don't want to sit through the first half, and the violence was just so gruesome that it seemed to not really, I don't know, I just didn't get into it really.
It's definitely not a number 1.
No, it's not a number 1 by any means. It's not awful. It was just kind of starts, I mean, I appreciate a slow build, but when the first 45 minutes of your movie is just a dude dating women before you finally meet the nutcase, it was just boring. Spoiler.
Glenn?
I
saw this movie way back in the day, and I remember really liking it at the time, but I don't remember it very well.
And there you have it. Sort of a lackluster conclusion to our list there. Now, let's talk about the movies that didn't make it that should have been on there. I have a couple, and I know you're going to mention a couple that I like as well, but the 2 that come immediately to mind for me are Pontypool and The Mist.
Ooh.
Pontypool, a great, small, quiet movie with such a unique concept and so well acted. It's unlike any other horror movie I've seen. That would be a top 10 entry for me for sure. And then The Mist, I'm biased because that is one of my all-time favorite horror stories. But it's such a vivid realization of that story, such great creature design, such great tension, and that ending, which was completely out of the blue. You can't mess with that movie as far as feel-bad, downer horror films go. Those would be 2 top 10 entries for me, for sure, that I think the list desperately needs.
Now this is going to sound like a commercial, but the Blu-ray of that movie has a second cut of the, well, not a second cut, but it's the same movie, but it's in black and white.
Yeah, it's definitely the way
and
to
it
watch
was so much better. It was exactly the same damn movie, but the monsters didn't look fake anymore. It almost looked like they had made it for black and white.
Well, he wanted to release it in black and white.
And because I watched it in the theater, and I thought, it was decent. And then I got that movie, and I thought, I'll watch it in black and white. And it was literally like you're watching a different movie.
Yeah, that's great.
So that was by the Blu-ray. The list for my movies, I guess 2 that I can think of. The first would be The Ruins, which is definitely one of the, not only the best horror movies of the last 15 years, but one of my favorite horror movies ever, really.
Yeah, that would make my list too.
These-
That's a terrific film.
People trapped at the top of a Mayan pyramid while carnivorous plants eat them, and they are surrounded by Mayans who won't let them leave.
Yeah.
Which probably, I guess, now that I say it out loud, sounds really fucking stupid, but it's actually a really, really good movie.
Well, what I like is a lot of it takes place in bright daylight. There's so many films are about in nighttime. The fact that it's all so brightly lit, it just makes it that much more realistic and horrific. I would agree. If you hadn't already picked it, that would have been one of my choices.
Well, much like The Descent, the characters start turning on each other, it's like totally believable the way that it happens, And then the other one is the Dawn of the Dead remake, which goes against almost every fiber of my being. First of all, that a Dawn of the Dead remake even exists. Second, that they changed them to fast zombies.
Are we in trouble?
And it's just a really, really great movie. It rivals the original, which I never thought I would say.
Well, that's absurd, but it is a great movie. I did enjoy it too, and it makes me forgive Zack Snyder for everything else he's done.
It's the only good thing he's done.
I haven't really sat down to think of things that are missing. I'm sure there are things. If you were giving me some time, I don't know why you needed this so soon. But the one thing that I did think of was Only Lovers Left Alive? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew that Brian didn't like it, so it really appealed to me in that way. And I don't like Brian. But also, the movie made me think how much I don't like Brian. And also, I don't really care about vampires anymore, but this movie still got to me. I believe the characters were vampires. Who's saying they're not? Add this to the list.
All right, then. Well, that's our 4-hour-long conversation about the AV Club's top 25 horror films of the last 15 years. Please check out our YouTube channel, 2 Men, 1 Couch. Most of our shows are much, much shorter. Check out our basketball show, One-on-One with Glenn and Brent, and please check out the show in which Brian and Glenn and I drink beer and play video games called Bits and Brews.
And write me at buzzquestions@hotmail.com.
All right. Thank you very much, and good night.